everybody, and welcome. Natalie, your hair looks cute today. I haven't seen it down in a long time. With it being summer, I'm not sure how many people will actually be on today. We might have a lighter call. Looks like we've got a new face. Welcome, Karen. I don't know if you've called in before. It's nice to meet you.
It's my first time.
Excellent. Well, I will kick us off and get us started, and I'll watch the waiting room and let people trickle in as they come. I'm CKearney, founder and owner of CKearney Consulting. We are a CRM and data management firm focused on AEC. Today's topic, we had outlined to talk about CRM for BD. Really, this can be anything and everything you guys want it to be. So this is meant to be a user group and a forum for you guys to be able to talk to one another and get the information that you are looking for from your peers. We'll introduce ourselves. If you'll go around and say your name, your firm, your role, and then if you want to ask specific questions related to CRM for BD, we can start that conversation. If you have some other topic that you'd like to talk about, definitely bring that up whenever you do your intros. I'll go in the order that I see you guys on my list, and then we can let other people introduce themselves as they come on. So we'll kick it off with Natalie.
I'm Natalie Praise. I'm from Crouse Anderson Construction Company, a general contractor in Minneapolis.
Fantastic. Any topics that you wanted to discuss today, or just kind of whatever comes up?
I was just trying to think about it, so I'll keep processing while we move along and see if I think of something.
Perfect. All right, we'll go Nora, and then we'll go to Karen.
Hi, I'm Nora. I am with Jacobson Construction here in Salt Lake City. I am the CRM administrator. We use CoCentral as our CRM. I am also thinking of topics. I don't have anything off the top of my head, but
Okay.
I will hopefully come up with something.
Perfect. Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Cotton, knowledge manager with HIT Contracting. I'm the CRM system admin, and we use Microsoft Dynamics. We have about 10 business developers at our company of 1,200 people, and I'm sure their complaint is the same as many, is that when they're out and about, they don't want to do data entry. They don't sit down at their computers a lot. So how do we impress on them the importance of sharing their information in our CRM? Sorry if that's too basic of a question.
No, that's perfect. I think that's what many of us struggle with. All right, we'll go Courtney Vance and then Dave.
Hi, I'm Courtney Vance. I work at CKearney Consulting as a project manager. I go by C Vance because obviously there's two Courtneys here, and I see a few familiar faces, so it's good to see everybody, and looking forward to the discussion.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a little late, so I missed what we're doing. Just introductions. I'm Dave Bennett. I'm the business development director for 5 subsidiaries of OTNA, which is an Alaska Native corporation, and might have a broad range of interest in the implementation of our CRM, which is CoCentral, and making it work for my group and the business development group and the company as a whole.
All right, and then it looks like Carissa just joined. So if you want to introduce yourself, say your role and where you're located, and then if there's any specific topics. And Dave, if there's any specific topics, the broad topic was CRM for BD, but if there's a specific thing you want to talk about with this group, then we can talk about that.
I'm Carissa Blackman, and I'm a project manager with CKearney Consulting. And I'm located right outside of Dallas in McKinney, Texas. I can't think on the spot of anything specific. There's probably a million things that I could learn. But no, I don't have anything specific for today.
Sounds good. I did pull up my slides just as kind of a go by for the free webinar that I did on CRM for BD. I think we can pull some discussion topics from that. As far as having the business developers that are on the go that Karen mentioned, struggling to get them to enter information, has anybody on the call kind of cracked that nut and figured out ways to get their BD staff to enter information? Oh, it looks like we might have dropped Karen. Hold on, she's coming back. All right, Karen, did you lose audio?
No, it's the connection is pretty bad for me. So I was trying to see if relogging in would be better.
Okay, perfect. So I had just posed your question to the group, asking if anybody had cracked the nut of being able to get business developers engaged that are out in the field and on the go. So I was going to open it up to the group.
Crack the nut? No. Have been the business developer and asked to use a CRM and and avoided it like the plague. Guilty. I fundamentally, the biggest issue for me in the past has been access and then training. Like, what are your expectations and understanding, and then why, where, and how is the information I'm putting in being used? I think that a lot of companies do a very poor job of explaining the what, where, whys, and how of how that information. There's a lot of paranoia with business developers about, well, are my contacts and my leads and the things that I'm going to be doing, if I put all this information into a system where everybody else has access to it, what do they need me for? And so without sort of a clear reassurance of how the process works and how that information is handled and who's using it and for what, and the value that that relation, because it's a lot of sales as a business development is about relationships, and people are truly paranoid about their relationships being taken over, or them like, we'll get close to the end of a deal and, you know, oh, well, I'm taking it over now, I don't need you, and getting pushed out. So I think that the it's not the CRM that is the problem, it is the management, and how people have been treated and or fear they're going to be treated in the past. So that, I think, is that it is not a CRM problem. It is a corporate management structure problem, and why it's not getting used. I will argue that Microsoft Dynamics, when a company had previously had, their Microsoft Dynamics interface was so nauseatingly terrible that you couldn't get even people who liked CRMs to use it. So that was my problem with the version of Microsoft Dynamics that I had in another life. But I think the real issue with business developers not using the CRM is lack of trust in corporate.
It's such an interesting perspective, Dave. I just spent a week away creating content, and a lot of that content is centered around the idea that the only way that a CRM, whether that's in a process or an actual system, either of those two things, because we all know that CRM is far more than a piece of technology. It's a lot about your process and your people. That the key linchpin, if you will, is your management, your senior leadership. It has to be top down or it will not work. You cannot push that boulder up the hill.
You absolutely can't. And with that management, it all has to be wrapped around trust and faith in that doing the right thing. And the second they've done the wrong thing, oh, we gave sales credit to Bob instead of Jane. And, you know, that's people's, well, their pride for one, and they're emotionally attached to, you know, we do sales and business development because we like to win. It's my little Incredibles thing. So,
Yeah, I think it also depends on how people are incentivized. I know our BD people are incentivized to help bring in the opportunities, and if they do that, they get credit and they get bonus based on if they help bring it in and the project is a win. And they can share credit with other business developers too, which I think is helpful. Without that incentivization, I think it would be a little more people keeping their cards close to the vest and not wanting to info share, which is the whole point of CRM, is info sharing.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
the other thing too is not making it, because I think there's a lot of perception around people are just trying to keep tabs on me. They want to, use it in a punitive way. They want to see, am I doing my job? And if that's the perception, nobody likes that. Nobody wants to feel like this is just Big Brother. They're trying to make sure I'm doing my job. That sucks. So trying to make it as like, what is the benefit for you? Like, what's in it for me? And why is it a good thing? It's not because we're trying to, well, maybe you are, but as long as you try to keep that perception, that's not the perception, that it's, hey, this is a tool for all of us to all as a team work towards our goals, and not make it like, oh, we're going to have all these like, specific to the BD person and trying to track every move. I think that's where, you can get in trouble too. When I used to run our CRM for another company, nobody ever wanted to put stuff in. But then when I was creating quarterly PowerPoints, quarterly reports, and I'm like, hey, it looks like you have no activity for the last 3 months. And they're like, well, I've been doing that. I'm like, well, unless it's in there, like, I have nothing to report to management. So, and then they'd scramble and try to make up data to put in. And so I think it's just that, trying to keep that perception from being the perception, and make it a positive thing, and not, because I think that's what a lot of salespeople or BD think CRMs are for. It's just to create more reports.
Police. Yeah.
Or it's just to create data to use against me or whatever. And so I think that's something else that has to be from the top down, not just, we're just doing this to get the data.
I think go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I think a big part of that is that so many CRMs are initially built around the idea of selling widgets. And at least most of the people I know that are on the call are related to the AEC industry, and the AEC industry and how we do business development and what we sell for our projects and our people and our the brains that our people have and their ability to execute things. We're not selling widgets. We're not selling tons of or truckloads or grosses of a particular thing. So that is so tied to relationships and understanding of the clients and patterns that's really intimate knowledge, and that's really how it's handled and treated, and finding out how that sharing that information is of value to everybody. And I think when people who are not necessarily tied to the company and the industry work to develop the CRM and the concepts of the CRM, and come from I have an MBA in sales or an MBA from somewhere, and they come from a different sales culture to an extent, and they try to build a CRM around that and those metrics, like you said, people keeping tabs on people. What's the value of understanding what people are doing and how they're doing? Is it what they're doing or how they're doing, or is it the end results, and how does it all get tied together? And I think that's what, if you're designing the CRM for use, well, why do you have to know what these people are doing? What is the real output you need out of it for these people, and what's the value of the reports, and explaining that is also important.
Yeah, I think Karen said it really well, when at the root of it, CRM is about info sharing. It's about having the knowledge of your relationship with your clients, so that Natalie and I have known each other for 10 years at this point, right? So when I click on Natalie's name in my CRM, I can have all of that relationship. Now, not the personal stuff, the whatever, but the history of that relationship can be documented, so that when other people at my firm CVance being one of them, starts to have that relationship, she has a full breadth of knowledge of, oh my gosh, these relationships go far back to other companies, to other, that's the piece that CRM, I think, is the info sharing. But to get leadership on board, one of the things that came to root in writing all this content over the past week is that it comes down to usage. If you want me to be a data collector for data's sake, it's going to die. No one can sustain that. But if you're asking me to enter this data for a reason, that there is a business why, then everyone can get behind that. So one of the examples that I used was that at a general contractor, bonding capacity was a big daggum deal, and that they had to know their bonding capacity real time at all times so that they could pursue other work. If their bonding capacity was taken up too much, they could win a job because they literally didn't have enough capacity to cover that project. So it was a big, balancing act of what is taking up our capacity by current work. When does that finish? When does it get freed up? When can we win more work? That is a perfect thing that a CRM can handle for you, whether that's, tracking, like you said, Dave, like we aren't widget people, we are project-based people. So looking at that information, having the CRM do that for upper management, all of a sudden they gave a crap about CRM and everything had to be up to date at all times, to where the CEO was like, we're not talking about that project. Is it in the CRM? At the time we used CoCentral. If it's not in CoCentral, I'm not going to hear about it. After that shift happened, the CRM was successful. Before that, nobody outside of marketing knew about it. So I think that is the key to it, is usage and understanding that it's all about information and knowledge sharing and protecting that business asset. Because if all of your relationships are trapped with Dave and Dave walks out the door, if you didn't trap any of that, all those potential jobs are gone. Same thing if like Nora has all these relationships and she's been documenting them. When Nora leaves, we can run a report and say, hey, Natalie, these are all of Nora's clients. Someone needs to introduce themselves and take over those relationships, or at least communicate. How bad is it when our clients go, hey, Nora, I've got this job for you, and all they get is a bounce back? Okay, then I'm going to go to LinkedIn and look at where Nora's at and go give that job to them. That's never how we want to treat those relationships. Yeah. So I think that's the root.
Yeah. And I think that's, though, is where the conundrum comes in, and kind of what Dave was talking about earlier is that, that's business development. That's your relationships are your portfolio, right? Like my dad just changed jobs. He was with the same company in oil and gas for almost 40 years. He got laid off because of everything that's been going on with oil and gas. He got a new job. Guess what his first task was? Enter all your contacts. They didn't buy, just him as a person or what his skills. They bought all the relationships that he was going to bring to the new territory that they wanted him, that he knew. And so, he called me, he's like, CRM, and because he knows that's like what I do. It was pretty funny. He's like, I'm annoyed. I don't want to do this. I'm like, okay, well, you can pay me and I'll do it for you, I guess. But anyways, all that to say, like, I think that's where the thing comes in, because it's like, yes, at the company is trying to protect their assets, which are the relationships that their people have been building. But you've got the business developers who, hey, I think
it's a two-way street, right?
It's hard. Yeah. I'm just saying it's hard to kind of see that, they're like, okay, well, they're trying to protect their assets, which they need to, but business developers may see that as like, hey, this is what is important to me. And this is part of my value. So why should I be info sharing? So it's just it's a very delicate kind of balance.
I think that goes back to a leadership attitude, right? Of this is a two-way street. There's a partnership. Yeah. You absolutely have developed those relationships, and you are an entity. You are a human. You are not just a cog in a wheel. However, it's up to the business to keep that person happy, to stay at that firm. It's up to the business to then take over that relationship and nurture it. Just because that person left does not mean that you have to lose all that business. If you've done it well, you've also zippered, where that person also has met other people. They've met Natalie, they've met Lindsay, they've met all these other people at the firm, that you don't just have a relationship with that one person. So I think that it's up to the business to take an active role in that as well. If all they're doing is, Dave, this is all your responsibility, then when Dave leaves, so go those relationships. But if the business takes an active role and all of a sudden Dave's clients are introduced to the COO and the whoever else at the firm needs to be introduced to this person, then I think that you have a fighting chance to sustain a relationship with those people.
Yeah.
I've noticed, like, even getting, when you do get buy-in, it's finally when they have an aha moment. Well, this is by chance. Can you run a report of all the projects that, and you can, and automatically now you've won them over for whatever reason. If it's who went to school at Mankato State, have we done steam tunnel work? Because you have users, right? And they are engaged, some are more engaged, some are not. But they know to go to the one central place. I think we've learned that with our 50 some users. And then this should be your first point. And like you all spoke, if you don't have it in here and we run a report and the executives see it and it's missing, the dollars aren't updated, why is all this, the dates wrong? It's on them. So I think we've come a long way, but it feels like we've had it 12 years and I feel like it's an uphill battle, the training, you can send out all you want, and it's, yeah. So I think it will always go on, right? Because humans are different until they need it. And then it's your lack of doing this should not be me entering 15 new opportunities before your meeting in an hour. I don't have that kind of time.
Natalie, I love that example. I'm frantically typing into my notes of adding this example to my content. But I think the other part of that is pushing into the pain of, here's a half-ass report. If you had pushed and held people accountable, you could have had a perfect report. And not shying away from that. Like, that's not a burden that you should carry. No, that's a burden that they should carry. That's a burden that is on the account, like Dave, you said, like setting the expectations and then follow through of accountability. So I had no problem with it when I was the CRM manager, pushing back on that is, here's what I can provide you and here's why it's not correct. Here's why it's inaccurate. Here's why, X, Y, Z, so that ownership's not on me. And it shouldn't be just on that one person.
Do that all the time. I have reports for our pipeline and there are, oh, this project's got $1 value because you can't put 0 in the CRM. So you put $1 or $10 or $100 and that report goes up to our corporate leadership and they're the ones who finally go, why is there so much stuff that's $100? Why? And I'm like, here's the report that I sent to everybody that told them that please provide me real information. And this is the one update of the 40 that I got back. So, I mean, I'll work the system, but it's their information. It's their data. They just need to tell me what it is. They don't need to get into the system if they don't want to, but it's their data. It's their information. I'm reporting their world, not my world. It's not so I really have gotten to a point where I don't take ownership of that, and I will shame them. I'm like, yeah, well, and I literally get the response back from the corporate leadership. This is, why is this $1? And I'm like, that's the information that it was made. I provided 4 opportunities to get a better piece of data, and I got no response. And they're like, okay. so then I ask, what's the number? And someone in 30 seconds says, oh, it's $485,000. And I'm like, was it that hard? Really? Was it that hard? And it comes down to fundamentally a culture of respect of, I'm not asking just for my health. You should respect the fact that I'm asking for a reason, but I'm not going to beat myself up for it. I'll report what you gave me, which if that is nothing, it's nothing. And the leadership should have the discussion about, no, you shouldn't be updating your CRM. You should be respecting your coworkers and the job they're doing, because this is the value it adds to our processes. Yeah, it's not about the CRM. It's about participating in the organization and the way it's structured and moving everybody forward. That was my other sort of thing. Don't yell at them for, getting on the CRM, and then they'll hate the CRM. And it's not the CRM. It's a business process and it's a respect for your coworkers who are working that same process.
Yeah.
And so
everyone plays their part, and I think that that's where sometimes we lose sight of it, especially if the focus has been on a piece of technology. Then the hate comes at the technology, when really there are firms that make it work really well and there are firms that don't, and it comes down to process. It's the same piece of technology across all platforms. It's how you internally are using it is real, bottom line.
And fundamentally, if the information in there is going to be relied upon by leadership and it's not maintained, they're making bad decisions which will impact you as an employee. I've said that over and over and over again. Previous company I worked for, their pipeline looked like this, and because the data was not being managed when they reorganized and sort of changed who was looking at that information, they all of a sudden they found 14 duplicate entries for the same thing and stuff, and their pipeline went from this to this, and there was literally a come to Jesus, holy shit, what the hell just happened discussion. It's like, well, some people who use the system looked at the system and said, oh, there's our and so I mean, there were layoffs because, well, if we don't have a pipeline that's this broad, when you apply the metrics, we can't afford to have a few people. So there's real world impacts.
I think that that's very valuable, Dave, especially when kind of CRM 1.0 is getting people in it, use it, bought in, all of that. CRM 2.0 is kind of what you're talking about, where you have to take the time to understand what it is you're looking at and how to apply it. So one of the examples that I give is, you're right, like pipeline is a perfect example. I can look at that pipeline and go, we're really good. Look, that shape is a funnel. That means we're good. Did I take the time to actually look and say, those numbers are actually inverted and the shape never changes? Whoops. Or did I look at that and go, that's really healthy? And really what it's telling me is by quantity, not dollar value. Okay, that's bad. Let's refocus this. Or did one person display it as, this is everything that's open in our entire system? Or did someone filter it to only what's open that's been created this year? That could be very different. Like, you have to understand the data that's being projected at you and then what you're going to do with it. So I think that you can manipulate the heck out of data to tell whatever story you want it to tell. Are you doing it correctly is the next question, that 2.0 piece. I just realized what time it was, and this was the quickest 28 minutes because, oh my gosh, like, this is obviously where my passion lies. So did anybody have a question that we didn't get to that we can cover in, 60 seconds?
Just curious if anybody else has any great tips for getting BD people to build good data entry habits or anything that's worked at your firm.
When I started working with CKearney, one of the things she said is, I always have CoSential open on my desktop. And that was one of the things I've really talked with my folks about, is just having it open. And we've found that really works, because it's even if it just sits over in a second or third screen now, because everybody has 14 monitors. It's just really easy to grab that information or put that information in if it's open. And I think that's been a real sort of positive habit. The other thing for me is I do it in the morning with my cup of coffee. That's my routine. I sort of look at the CRM for something every morning before
it's your newspaper.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I've sort of, at least from a data integrity and management side of the house, and that's how I work it. I'm not entering the data. I'm working with people who are more often, but that's sort of how I do it, is I do it with my cup of coffee in the morning.
I always remind my users that it only takes a couple minutes a day. So just like you find time to check your email, like Dave said, with your cup of coffee, whatever it is, your routine in the morning or in the afternoon when you're checking your email or whatever, find that time to open up your CRM and take a couple minutes, and that's all it takes.
I love that, Nora. One of the things that I talk a lot about, Karen, and this analogy really resonates with people, is the idea of data hygiene. So you brush your teeth every day. You find time to figure out when you're going to brush your teeth every day in order to keep your teeth healthy. Now, if you skip a day or two, it's not the end of the world, or like not consecutively, but like a day, a morning, a night, whatever that looks like, it's not that big of a deal. But if you skip like a week, your dentist is not going to be excited to, have that cleanup or that check-in. So that's really like the idea of data hygiene is it's little habits that form over time. Figuring out to floss after lunch or whatever that little habit is that you figure out, whether that's you help them get an Outlook plugin because they live in Outlook and then it's all of a sudden easier. I figured it out that that's a help for me. I can then, I see that Nora's moved companies, boom, I can update it in Outlook. Or maybe the better process is I'm not the right person to do it. I'll forward it to Courtney and say, hey, when you have time, when you're in the CRM next time, could you just update this? Whatever that process piece is, some people are more mobile driven. Some people are more Outlook driven. Some people love the, web interface. I don't know that it's necessarily having to figure out what that is, but helping them cultivate that habit is the key.
Yeah, Courtney, we even put brush your teeth in our SOPs for the BD next to CoCentral. Brush your teeth.
I love it. Very good. Well, that ends our time together. That was a very quick 32 minutes. I did want to let you guys know, I'm going to drop into our chat window that if you do want extra resources on the topic of CRM for BD, I did do a free webinar for this very topic. So I'm going to drop that in to our chat window. Where did that go? I think I just closed it. Cool. Here we go. So feel free to watch that. It was another quick 30-minute type situation, and then sign up for our next user group call. We're having a guest speaker next month. So August will be Lindsay Diven, who has, like me, spent her life in CRM. So it'll be good to hear from her. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.